Just about 2 hours northeast of New York City and just over the Connecticut and Massachusetts border sits Six Flags New England, a smaller scale park with some redundancies and holes in their coaster lineup. With only one new coaster in the last 5 years being Joker, a 4D free spin, this park is more than overdue for a new coaster. So let's look at what could be next for Six Flags New England. Let's start off by looking at the coaster lineup. The park features an amazing top two, in Wicked Cyclone, an RMC conversion, and Superman the Ride, an intimate hypercoaster. Those are followed by a pair of looping coasters, Batman the Dark Knight, a small B&M floorless, and Riddler's Revenge, a Vekoma SLC with the updated vest restraints. As I stated earlier, the park also has the 4D free spin Joker as its newest coaster, and on the other hand, Thunderbolt, which is the oldest. Thunderbolt is a fun 1941 PTC Woody. The park also features two boomerangs, a classic model named Flashback, and the giant inverted model named Goliath. For families, you can find Pandemonium, a spinning coaster, Gotham City Gauntlet, a relocated Wild Mouse coaster, and Catwoman's Whip, which is one of those Zero models with the 20 car trains. Finally, there's Great Escape for kids. So overall, two great coasters, two loopers, two boomerangs, two other supporting coasters, and the three clone family coasters. A lot of this lineup does feel a bit redundant and has one major gap, a launch coaster. In fact, the only launch coaster in the park's history was Black Widow, an Arrow shuttle loop coaster that closed in 1999. However, the park seems to be pretty tight on space, and flushing out a full-scale launch coaster without a major ride removal seems like it's a tall order. My first guess for what could come next is a Max Force-esque attraction, but perhaps on a slightly smaller scale. As you can see, the plot Max Force uses is 680 feet by 230 feet. Now, for this to work anywhere in the park without removing a beloved ride, it would most likely require the removal of both Flashback and Goliath. Combining the back-to-back boomerang land creates a plot that is about 700 feet long and averages around 100 feet wide with narrowing at the top. Now, the park won't really miss these rides at all, as Goliath almost never runs and it's one of the rougher coasters out there, and Flashback is just a mediocre average boomerang at best. The two biggest issues with this idea are the location itself, if it will fit a ride of that size, and the cost. This park hasn't seen a ground-up custom coaster since Batman in 2002. Even their best ride, Wicked Cyclone, was a conversion from RMC, which didn't exactly break the bank. Now overall, I think they could manage to design a smaller scale Max Force ride, but I think if Six Flags wants to go cheaper, then they could go in another direction. On the other side of the park, there's a small plot on a hill between the kids area, Superman and Riddler's Revenge. This plot is more than enough to fit an icebreaker style multi-launch. A smaller scale multi-launch from Premier that would give the park its launch, finally, and save money over a Max Force sized ride. If the park wanted more length, they could try a West Coast Racer style dueling coaster in the area as well, but I think the terrain, it kind of sits on a hill, and the cost would definitely drive that away. The other two options I see possible here are an RMC Raptor, either a clone of Wonder Woman or an upscale like Jersey Devil, or a mock Power Splash. First with the Power Splash. The same plot as we talked about before, removing both boomerangs, would work fine here for this water coaster, but I feel like they would prefer to put it near the water park entrance on the other side of the park. But I don't really see anywhere for it to fit near Batman and Joker unless they place it in the employee lot in the back. And something tells me they wouldn't be too keen on wanting their new shiny toy tucked away in the back like that. Also, while I've experienced many scorching hot summer days at this park, the summer season is certainly shorter here than at a park like Over Texas, and the company may be hesitant to add a ride that may not operate the entire park season. Now for the Raptor options. I know I said earlier the park's lineup is a little redundant already, and adding an airtime-filled Raptor would be in the same vein as a Wicked Cyclone and even Superman, but these rides are good enough anyway. Not to mention, they're a space saver. If the park wanted to go the smaller scale route, they could replace Goliath by itself, or go back to that side plot from before. While this plot doesn't quite fit a larger scale like Jersey Devil, a custom layout is more than possible, especially if the park decides to remove Catwoman's Whip. However, the double boomerang area from earlier could easily fit an upscale Raptor as well. Removing a maintenance nightmare and a boring boomerang just seems like a win-win to me. Now, I could see the park being a bit hesitant to build a Raptor so close to Great Adventure, but perhaps if it's a clone of Wonder Woman or a custom layout, they wouldn't mind. Not to mention, the Raptors start at around $7 million for the smaller sizes, while a ride like Max Force is in the area of $15 million. Without any numbers available at this time, I'm guessing the larger scale Raptors would be around $11 to $15 million as well. Power Splashes run around $10 million, and an Icebreaker style launch coaster would be around $8.5 million. Now, I'm still doubtful over how much Six Flags is willing to invest into this park, especially after the 2020 season. If I had to choose one, I think I'd pick the Icebreaker style multi-launch, in either of the two plots we talked about earlier. I just think for the cost, it fills by far the largest gap in the lineup, and it's totally different than any other ride in the area besides Phobia at Lake Compounds, which is only a Skyrocket 2. Now, as for when we might see this edition, I'm pretty unsure. I thought back in 2019 that 2020 would finally be the year that they get a new coaster. But I think we're going to see Six Flags become even more of a discount chain and bargain bin shoppers in terms of editions, and I don't see New England being too high on their list to spend. So, if I had to guess, I'd say probably around 2023. Personally, I'm pulling for a Max Force style ride as soon as possible, which would bump this park's lineup way higher in the Six Flags chain, but I just don't really see it happening. Now, before I sign off, the other idea I had was maybe a modern GCI to fill a smaller gap, but Six Flags hasn't worked with them since 2009, and fitting it into the existing park would be pretty tough. But anyway, that's going to wrap up this week's video. Let me know what you think is coming to Six Flags New England next, and what you'd prefer to see come here. As always, check out Island Coasters on Instagram for daily coaster content, news, and video updates. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out the rest in the series. For now, that's all from the shores of Island Coasters.